What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gasket Garage. Today we are doing part 2 of this go-kart project right here. In today's video, I'm going to be putting a new carburetor on this thing and we're going to be doing some performance testing on this and getting a top speed as well as some 60-foot and 100-foot times for acceleration. And then after that, I'm going to do a stage 3 build on that engine to unlock some serious horsepower. And hopefully by the end of this video, we'll be able to test it out. This is going to be a pretty fun episode, so enjoy the video. All right, guys, so in the last video of this project, we got this go-kart pretty much up and running again, and I tried to do a test drive on it, but the engine was running like absolute garbage. So that's why in this episode, we're going to be putting a 24mm round slide carb on that thing, which is probably a little bit too big for that being only a stock engine, but we're going to just roll with it anyway, because I am going to be building this engine in this video. So, now that this thing has pedals, brakes, new front wheels and everything, and a torque converter and chain, let's go ahead and get that old carburetor off there, put the new one on, and try and take this thing out for a drive and do some performance testing. All right, guys, so I just got the carburetor and throttle cable all hooked up on this thing, and something really cool about this carburetor is that it has a clear fuel bowl, which can be really helpful in diagnosing a stuck float valve, and you can also check if there's any debris in the fuel bowl without actually taking the bowl off, which is really nice. So one thing I did do with the throttle over here is I zip tied that little bolt in there as a throttle stop, because this style of carburetor eliminates the governor on the engine, and since I don't have a billet rod or billet flywheel in this thing yet, or heavier valve springs, I don't want to get valve float and or bust a rod in this thing. So I put a throttle stop on there so it only gets about 3/4 throttle, so I don't over rev this thing with it still being stock. And it'll also kind of mimic a stock carburetor on there because it'll prevent it from revving too high. So I'm going to first jack the rear end up to get the rear tires off the ground and test start it just to kind of see how it runs and see if I need to tune anything before I take it for a drive. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, let's start this thing up. And I also put the stock exhaust on here to try and mimic a stock setup as much as possible. It would help if I turn the kill switch on. Cool, let's take it for a test drive. Hopefully this thing doesn't run away on me. Chain popped off. All right, that was certainly interesting. I also forgot to inflate this tire, so it pulls to the left like super hard. Let me get this chain back on, and we may have to make a few adjustments to some things. All right, guys, so we're gonna do 3 60-foot passes now that I inflated the tire and put the chain back on. I've got my brother on the timer here, and I've got these 2 paint cans set up for the 60-foot marks. The white paint can where the go-kart is down there is the start line, and then this is the 60-foot mark right here. So we're gonna do 3 passes, and then I'll average the times to see what my best time was. And then after I build the engine, then I'm going to do this again to see how much performance we gained. You ready? Times are 3.42, 3.64, and 3.21. So I did the math, and that brings our average out to about 3.4 seconds, which is pretty decent for a 60-foot time. But we're gonna go ahead and actually do a top speed run on this thing real quick to get that number, and then we can go ahead and start tearing this engine down to put all the performance parts in it. All right, guys, so I've got the speedometer going on my phone here, and let's go ahead and take this thing for a top speed run. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna stop the camera and check what the top speed was. All right, guys, so I just checked the top speed, and we hit 41 miles an hour on this thing, which, considering this is a mostly stock engine and really all it's been done to it is just a carburetor and no governor, this thing is pretty quick, and it does do donuts, as you saw back there, which is totally awesome. So now let's go ahead and start tearing down this engine, getting it completely taken apart from the inside out, and start building it to a stage 3 upgraded beast. right, guys, so I just finished getting this engine completely torn down, and I noticed a few things. Number one, this side cover over here does have a little bit of damage to it right there and right there, and it actually goes all the way through the inside there and there. So I'll probably just need to throw some JB Weld on the outside of it to prevent any oil leaks from happening. Now, the second thing I noticed is there are some watermarks on the inside of this cylinder right here. And I don't think they're going to be a problem because I don't really feel any pitting or grooves or damage to the inside of that cylinder. So I don't think I need to hone it. Now, the third thing I noticed is this head gasket is actually an aftermarket head gasket. I measured it with the caliper, and I think it's right around 0.01 inches in thickness, which is actually the same size head gasket that comes in the Go Power Sports Stage 2 kit that I ordered. So I'll either use this head gasket or more likely the one that comes with the Go Power Sports kit, because they are this exact same size. So while I'm waiting for the Go Power Sports kit to get here, we're actually going to start porting out the valves on this head right here for more flow. I'm going to take a Dremel and really open up this port in there because it's kind of small and restrictive from the factory, and I'm also going to open up the exhaust port and make it a little bigger too for more flow. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Guys, so I just got this head ported, and those ports are way bigger than they were before, and I also got the new 22-pound valve springs put in. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and start putting this engine together with the new parts that I got here from Go Power Sports. We got the billet aluminum flywheel, we got a hot 265 cam, and then we also have the billet rod with the bearings and the performance spark plug in there. So I am going to make sure the clearances are good on the crank journal in here for the rod. And I'll do that off camera just because it does take a little bit. But then we can start assembling this thing. All right, guys, so I'm just about done with this stage 3 build on this Predator 212 right here. I made a custom intake gasket out of an old cereal box, which is a little janky, but it does work, and that's all that matters. And then I also filled it up with some fresh oil along with this zinc additive to help break in the cam. And then all I have left is I have to make a exhaust header, and I'm going to use this old flange that I have right here. I do have to bore out the center of it to match this port size so it'll flow properly, and then obviously build a pipe off of it. Then once we do that, we can put the carburetor back on, bolt the engine back on the go-kart, and then take this thing for a rip. guys, let's see if this engine will give us a first start. I'm gonna try it on choke first. Oh yeah, this thing sounds mean. Now let's take it for a drive. So real quick, I had to move the gas tank over here because I only had one bolt holding it on right here, which was obviously a bad idea because it's kind of hard to see, but there is a crack right there. And this whole mounting ear, I guess you could call it, is completely snapped off of the block. But thankfully there is no hole in the block, so it's not a super big issue. But it's still not a good thing. So I had to move the gas tank over there. And then I also adjusted the gas pedal and removed that little stopper I put underneath there, because now that we have a built engine, we don't need the throttle stop. So this thing's good to go. I got that tire inflated. Let's go ahead and go up there and do some 60-foot times and then a top speed run. All right, guys, so we're gonna do just like we did before. We're gonna do 3 runs down this little 60-foot pass that I've set up, and then we'll average the times at the end, and then we'll compare this average versus the average that we took before when it was stock. You ready? Mm-hmm. All right, so we actually did 4 runs just cause, so I'll average them out real quick and tell you the time. All right, guys, so I just averaged out the times and it came out to 2.84 seconds as an average, which is almost a whole second faster in the average, that is, than the last time we did this when this engine was stock. And for a 60-foot time, that much of an increase is insane. And I think this thing actually spun tires on pavement, which is pretty crazy considering this is just only a little yard cart. So I'm gonna actually set up the camera right behind this thing and get a couple of shots of me launching this thing, because I think it does spin on pavement, which is pretty cool. And then after that, we'll take this thing for a top speed run. All right, guys, it's time for a top speed run on this beast of a yard cart. All right, guys, I got the speed thing going on my phone. We're gonna take this thing for a top speed run. guys, so we just hit 51 miles an hour, in case you couldn't see it on the GoPro. And this thing is rowdy, to say the least. The takeoff is insane. It's spun tires back there. It goes 51 miles an hour. It drifts. It's just an absolute beast of a go-kart. It is running a little bit rich though, so I do have to try and tune the carburetor a little bit and probably come up with some better mounts for the gas tank, because it's just zip tied on and it's kind of janky. And then I do need to get a torque converter cover and a racing bucket seat for this thing, because this little bench seat right here is not even attached and it's just kind of a piece of garbage. So this go-kart overall though is super fun, and honestly kind of scares me a little bit, just because how fast it is and just how much torque this thing has. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.